Very good evening all. I am Aditi Lamba with the Wednesday night edition of South Asian News, Vision of Asia. We are coming to you from our studio in New York City. Welcome to the show. Let's begin by the biggest news coming in today. Very troublesome. Supporters of President Donald Trump breached the U.S. Capitol as lawmakers counted the electoral vote certifying President-elect Joe Biden's wins. The protesters overturned barricades and have clashed with the police on the U.S. Capitol grounds and streamed inside the building. Members of the Congress have been evacuated and there was an armed standoff at the door of the House floor. Quite shocking to see this happen in this nation, putting lives at risk. Many of these protesters were maskless and were armed. The mayor of D.C. has called for a 6 p.m. curfew. We hope all of you in the Washington, D.C. area stay safe and healthy. We will continue to keep you all posted on this. Meanwhile, on the coronavirus pandemic, globally, we are looking at 86.8 million cases of the coronavirus with nearly 2 million deaths. The European Union's Medicine Emergency Agency has now given green light to Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine and has ordered 80 million doses of Moderna. China has blocked a visit from experts of the World Health Organization, WHO, who were supposed to investigate the origins of COVID-19 in Wuhan. Director of WHO said that he was very disappointed in the news. In the United States, we are at more than 21 million cases of COVID-19 with at least 357,000 deaths. Hospitalizations in the nation continue to rise following the holiday season, and cases are surging across the nation, with California now the new epicenter of the outbreak here. Some LA County ambulances have been given guidance to not transport patients with little chance of survival because the hospitals are reaching capacity. On vaccine, the rollout continues slowly with a need for a more sped-up process. While we wait on the vaccines to the public, please remember again to practice social distancing, wash your hands, and most importantly, mask up. If you are a healthcare worker who has received the vaccine, please write to us on events@itvgold.com. With that, let's begin tonight's South Asian News segment, reflecting much on coronavirus pandemic measures and updates, and an exclusive featuring Disney's new movie Soul. Here are the headlines. COVID-19 vaccine rolls out in the United States, featuring Dr. Purvi Parikh, New York City. Dr. Suresh Reddy on surge in coronavirus cases and vaccine, American Association of Physicians of Indian origin. Disney's Soul gets musical, virtual press junket featuring Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey. Time for a short break on Vision of Asia, Voice of the Community. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I am Aditi Lama and this is Vision of Asia, Wednesday night episode of South Asian News. Let's begin by taking a look at the coronavirus updates and measures. More Americans were hospitalized with COVID-19 today than at any time since the pandemic began, as total coronavirus infections crossed the 21 million mark. Deaths are soaring across much of the country and the historic vaccination effort is lagging. Yesterday, the U.S. COVID hospitalizations reached a record 130,000 with more than 3,600 deaths. That appalling toll meant that someone died from COVID-19 every 24 seconds in the country yesterday. In hard-hit California, public health authorities ordered hospitals in more than a dozen and central counties overwhelmed with COVID-19 patients to suspend elective surgeries for at least 3 weeks. Many healthcare systems are approaching a breaking point, pressure mounted on state and local officials to speed up the distribution of the 2 authorized vaccines from Pfizer BioNTech and Moderna Inc. The lack of federal blueprint for the crucial step of getting the vaccines into tens of millions of arms has left the state and local officials in charge of the monumental effort, creating a patchwork of different plans across the U.S. Bringing more insight into this and much more, we have now another segment of our conversation with Dr. Purvi Parikh. Here is the conversation. You just mentioned vaccine, and definitely I want to ask you about your experience with it. But right before that, you just mentioned the issue of vaccine rollout. The Biden-Harris administration is going to take over in just 2.5 weeks. What do you think they need to do in order to speed up the vaccine rollout? And a following question. Some experts are suggesting to only give everybody one dose of the vaccine so that more people could get inoculated. What are your comments on both those things?
Right. So, I think the federal government really needs to be involved in the rollout as much as the local governments, because so far the vaccine has been distributed to all the governors, but there's no uniform plan in place. So some states are doing a great job with these, large public vaccination sites that are military run, but some states, unfortunately, have only given the supply to the hospitals, and then the hospitals are responsible for distributing it. So it creates kind of a bottlenecking there. So I think the federal government needs to have these large public federally run sites. We need to utilize the military and basically just get people vaccinated 24/7 around the clock. It's not that difficult. We just need those sites to exist and the manpower to get out there. As for the one dose, I personally don't think it's a great idea because one, we haven't studied it as one dose alone. The main reason we did 2 doses was because there was some evidence that immunity didn't last from just 1 dose and not enough people mounted the appropriate response. So I think those 2 doses are necessary, and we're not really at that point where we're running out of supply. Right now, the main issue is that we're just not distributing the supply that we have. So I would actually prefer to stick to what was studied in the trials because we know that works, and we don't know what 1 dose will do. Then people, if they lose the immunity too quickly, we're back at square one again. So I think it's important that we administer it how it was studied.
Is it true that 1 dose only is effective 50%?
Yeah, so it depends on the vaccine, on the individual. That's even more reason to have the 2 doses. So the Pfizer vaccine was about 52% effective after the first dose, and then it jumps to over 95% after the second dose. Right. Moderna as well, I think, ranged from about 50 to 80%. So it was a little bit better in some people when they got close to that 80% threshold. And then that also jumped to over 95% after the second dose. But again, we don't know how long that 1 dose immunity lasts, first of all, because it wasn't studied that way. So, it might have some immunity, but then it's no good if it's gone in 2 or 3 months. And the second problem is that, you're only partially protected. So when we're dealing with something as contagious as coronavirus, and especially now that we have a more contagious strain, I think it makes more sense to protect people as much as we can with the 2 doses. So that way they have more protection and hopefully lasting protection too.
More on the coronavirus pandemic. The U.S. plans to start distributing COVID-19 vaccines through pharmacies around the country earlier than expected this week as states struggle to use the supply they have been allocated. The partnership with 19 pharmacy chains will eventually let the Operation Warp Speed vaccination program deliver to as many as 40,000 locations around the country. More than 70 of the more than 17 million vaccine doses have been delivered across the country since December have remained in freezers. U.S. Health and Human Services has said that the states should not keep vaccines sitting in the freezers too long for distribution to healthcare workers and has encouraged governors to skirt CDC recommendation if it can speed up the inoculation. Meanwhile, Georgia has become the 5th state to report a case of the more contagious virus strain first identified in the United Kingdom, joining states Colorado, California, Florida, and New York. So how does all this impact us, and what measures do we need to take with cases surging across the nation and all eyes on the vaccine? We spoke with Dr. Suresh Reddy on this and much more. Here is Dr. Reddy. Some are also saying that perhaps it may be more advisable right now to give out more first doses of the vaccine instead of keeping some for the second dose that many people have to be inoculated for. What are your comments on that?
Well, like people usually try to do fast and try to give their advice. But when you take a vaccine or any medication, you have to follow the strict advice by that pharmaceutical company. So if the pharmaceutical company says this is the way you have to give it, that's the only way you have to give it. So we cannot use our own judgment. We have to follow the rules. We have to follow the pharmaceutical recommendations. We have to follow the FDA. So there are strict rules in place. So we cannot give the way we want it. And we don't want to give a first dose and then some people not getting the second dose. So we have to make sure everybody follows the pharmaceutical recommendations advised by the pharmaceutical companies.
That's true. I think that's a very, very important point. Do you think the vaccine is reaching to pretty much all of the healthcare workers? We're hearing some community-based organizations and hospitals and clinics are still not getting the vaccine to inoculate their own doctors and nurses.
Yeah, as I said, as you know, US is a vast country with thousands of hospitals,
Right.
and definitely some hospitals will stand in line ahead of the other hospitals, and some hospitals they are more aggressive in getting them. And also the incidents, that means some states have more incidents of the infection and some states don't. So there is some variation that's expected anytime you do any project of this mass scale. There is some variation, but eventually, a few weeks, almost all the healthcare workers will get it. And also, I heard that some states are also giving to general public. So,
Yes.
like in Texas. So, I think eventually, I think in a month or so, I think all the healthcare workers will get it. In 3 to 4 months, I think all the general public will get it. That's what my feeling is.
Dr. Reddy, which vaccine did you get particularly? And a follow-up question to that, is there really a difference between, say, Moderna, Pfizer, or now AstraZeneca, which has been approved in the UK? Could you just help explain that? There are a lot of questions about it in the community.
In the United States, as of now, we have two vaccines, the Pfizer and also the Moderna.
Right.
So at this point, we are not even given a choice which one to take. They both are pretty similar in effectiveness and the safety pattern. I think the only difference is the temperature. The Pfizer has to be stored at around minus 90 degrees centigrade, which some hospitals or smaller medical centers cannot afford, whereas Moderna can be kept at the fridge temperature. So that's the major difference, but otherwise they are pretty similar. And the other vaccines at this point are not approved in the United States; they are in other countries. But in US, at least, we are not given a choice which one to take. But I think both are pretty similar in their safety range.
All right, last question here on vaccine, then I'll move on to the case that are surging because we need your comments on that too. When you're looking at the impact of this vaccine and its distribution, how much percentage of the population has to be vaccinated in order for us to go back to normal, in order for us to feel safe and protected? What are your comments on that?
I read somewhere that until every person is vaccinated, we are not still safe. So basically, your goal is 100% vaccination, but we know realistically that's not possible because some people refuse it. Some people they have their own. Some have religious affiliations which prevent them from taking any outside fluids. But my thoughts are like according to statistics, around 60 to 70 or 70% is a good number. If 70% are infected or vaccinated, that can create some kind of herd immunity and decrease the infection. But if you want to be 100% certain that you will not get infected, you have to take vaccine.
It's time for the short break on Vision of Asia, the South Asian news segment. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I am Aditi Lama, and this is Vision of Asia, South Asian news segment. Let's now take a look at an exclusive segment of the press junket for Disney's new movie Soul. The animated fantasy comedy drama film is produced by Pixar Animation Studios and is released by Walt Disney Pictures with director Pete Docter and co-director Kemp Powers. The story follows a middle school music teacher who seeks to be reunited with his soul and his body after they are accidentally separated just before his big break as a jazz musician. This is the first Pixar film to feature an African-American protagonist. The film stars the voices of Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey, Angela Bassett, and Felicia Rashad. The virtual press junket saw these stars on the essence of the movie and its appeal to all the communities. Here is the story.
What is this place?
What's your name, honey?
I'm Joe. I teach middle school band. Got it, go for it! Today started out as the best day of my life.
Back here tonight, first show's at 7.
Yes! Woohoo! You know what that's gonna say? Joe Gardner. I did it, I got the gig.
Soul is a beautiful story about appreciating the simple joys of life and also about finding your spark, that which excites you, gets you up in the morning, and those things that you want to pursue in life. So special because it's what makes it special. Pixar does it like, none other. They take it just seemingly a very simple premise, expand it out into this great big universe, and then bring it back down, and it resonates in individual hearts and lives. And you're moved, you're warm, you get something, you're reminded. It's as if those lessons that mothers and fathers and grandmothers and grandfathers tried to teach us, to love ourselves, to love our neighbor. Anything is possible. You can do it. Get back up again. Stay focused. All those wonderful, lessons that we eschew, and then somehow they got in there. They got in there. So this one is just about just loving you, being you, and don't take for granted a warm breeze on your face. Don't take for granted the big things and opportunities or the small things. The whole of life is made up of the both.
Must have been sudden for you.
Wow! Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Help! I'm not done! Oh my goodness!
How would I describe the story of Soul? The story of Soul is a animated journey of Joe Gardner, who is a ex-jazz musician who is turned to a high school music teacher whose dream is still burning, his passion is still burning, that one day he'll have that opportunity to become an incredible jazz musician. When he gets that opportunity, things go a little awry. And in Pixar and Disney fashion, we go on a journey of finding out where souls come from. And if you think about it, soul is in everything of our life. Who's your soulmate? Soul food. Soul Train. But this is that wonderful journey of finding out the origin of soul. The relationship between Joe and the new Soul 22 is almost mirroring what Joe was doing back on Earth. He was teaching. He was giving kids a reason to live, a reason to play music, a reason to laugh, a reason to have joy. So that's what he took. His special skill set was not just his music, but his ability to empower. And that's what he's doing with 22. He's empowering 22, giving 22 an opportunity to understand that life is worth living.
Huh? Is this heaven?
No, it's the great before. This is where new souls get their personalities, quirks, and interests before they go to Earth.
Meet 22.
I don't want to go to Earth.
Stop fighting this.
I don't want to. Hey, look, I already know everything about Earth, and I don't want anything to do with it.
You're missing out on the joys of life, like pizza. I can't smell. We can't taste either?
All that stuff is in your body.
No smell, no taste.
Or touch. See?
Okay, I get it.
The film the origin of this film really started by thinking about my own kids and wondering how was it that when the moment they were born, we could already tell kind of aspects of what made them unique and specific. Obviously, we didn't know everything until they grew older, but there were definitely things in there like personality attributes that we're all born with. And I know, like, my sisters and I have the same parents. We grew up in the same house. We're very different from each other. How is that? Where does that come from? So we just started thinking around about what makes us who we are. Where did those things get baked in? And we came up with this idea of the great before, a place where our souls were given all those aspects, and went from there. Like all the characters that we have created, the actors bring so much to the role. In the case of Jamie Foxx has amazing dramatic acting ability, comedic chops. He's a great musician. He has this passion and energy. All of those really brought Joe to life. In the case of 22, Tina Fey has this very witty, semi-snarky ability to just kind of cut through anything you want and just skewer it a little bit. She's incredibly smart. And so she not only voiced the character, does a great job in her acting, but also helped to write the film as well. And it was a dream come true to be able to work with her on that.
Soul is a story of a man's journey to discovering his purpose and what happens along the way. I wanted to take part in this project because it's a Pixar animated feature, and I knew it would be good. Soul is special to me because there's a very personal aspect of this film for me, and it has to do with artists being told by people with good intentions, that's very nice that you can do that, but you have to have something to fall back on. Now, you really need to think about your financial security. There's really no job security in any of this that you're talking about. It really isn't practical. Not understanding that artists are creating art because it's in us to do. It's who we are. It is as integral to our being as breathing is to life. So whether, you're fortunate enough as an artist to be able to earn a living doing what you love, or whether it's something that you'll have to do in tandem with something else so that you can live in the material world, still it has great meaning for us in life. And it would be kind of nice if people understood that a little more.
I would describe the story of Soul as the story of a man named Joe Gardner who thinks his life is on one track and then is surprisingly derailed from that track and has to learn what his real purpose is in life. I wanted to be a part of this project because I am a longtime fan of Pixar, and I was so excited to hear this specific story idea and to be a part of this cast, to get to work with Jamie and Felicia and Angela and Questlove. I was incredibly honored. To me, Joe Gardner is like a lot of us. He's someone who's living day to day and thinking that if he could just achieve this one thing that he's always wanted to do, then his life will really start. But his life has actually been happening this whole time. People should watch Soul on Christmas Day because I think it's a perfect movie to remind us of how lucky we are to be alive, how beautiful life is. It's a time when we're all together, and we may not all be physically together in the way we're used to this year. And I think it'll be a great way to connect with family, to have this shared experience of this movie.
Wow, it's my life.
Is all this living really worth dying for? You're still alive?
Can you help me get back?
No way!
There I am. What are we waiting for?
Wait, not me!
Well, this wraps up our show for the night. Please send us your suggestions and get your voices and organization on our show. Email us on events@itvgold.com or follow us on Facebook @itvgold. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for free access to many of our popular shows. Thank you for joining us tonight from Queens, New York. This is Vision of Asia, and I am Aditi Lamba. Take care and be well.